Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video, which is going to be the book recommendations tag, which is created by Steph Bohr here on BookTube. I got a request to do this video and I thought it would be fun because I haven't done a tag video in a while. So I have that planned for today's video and I hope you like it. If you would like to participate in this tag, I will leave the questions and Steph's original video in the description so that you can do it yourself, consider yourself tagged, and let's just get right into it, shall we? The first question is, a book you tell people is your favorite. My go-to favorite book that I tell everyone who asks is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I always feel like this is a safe one to tell anyone and everyone that this is my favorite book because it sounds intriguing to people who don't regularly read books if they don't know a lot about books. This one sounds interesting, and I want to be known as an interesting person who picks up interesting books. It's a conversation starter. It's not just like, oh, my favorite book is The Last One by Taylor Adams, because then that's like, okay, cool, dead end of conversation. They're not going to really push you much farther, I feel like. This one leaves some room for more discussion, like, oh, that sounds interesting, what is it about? I don't know. At least that's how I think about it in my head. This is also like a good one to just recommend for people of all genres, people of all interests. I don't know, I feel like that. I feel like this is a pretty modern classic. Question number 2 is a book that is your guilty pleasure. So this is one that you kind of keep a little bit under the radar if the average Joe on the street asks you what your favorite book is. This is not really one that you would tell them. I was watching Steph's video when I was thinking about doing this tag, and I was just like listening to all of her answers, and we have the same answer for this one, which I thought was so funny, and that is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This is definitely my guilty pleasure book. It's a fun, taboo, not really dark romance that can just transport you to this fantasy situation of falling in love with your ex-boyfriend's dad. Personally, never had that happen or been anywhere close to that kind of situation, but I think it's so fun to just daydream about it anyway, or just fantasize about it and just like not really have to be that main character in real life. I don't know. It's just a guilty pleasure for me because it's so fun. I don't know what else to say. Like, I just love this Penelope Douglas book so much. It's my favorite of hers. I'm a sucker for age gap, that's for sure. I'm a sucker for the forbidden romance, the forced proximity. This book has it all, ladies and gentlemen. If this is what you're looking for, I highly recommend it. It's such a fun time. A book everyone loved, but you didn't. I don't even have this book anymore because I really did not like it after seeing it so hyped everywhere. I was very disappointed. So I got rid of the book, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Everyone and their mother loves this book, and I hated it, honestly. While I was reading it, I was like, this is really what we have here. This is all we're getting. This is what everyone's been raving about forever. So I don't know. I was just really let down in the moment when I was reading it. And then afterwards, I was just like, ugh, what a waste of my time. I gave it originally like 2 stars, but then I felt a little bad because there were some quotes that I did like, but I really didn't like the book as a whole, hence unhauling it. I don't care for celebrity stories, especially like fictional ones. I've never been enamored with that kind of lifestyle, and I've never really cared about the struggles that they go through. I know that sounds so harsh, but like, I'm talking fictional. This doesn't resonate with me in any way. So, and I think because I was just kind of getting annoyed with the fact that everybody loves it, and I'm like, why? It's not that good. I will die on that hill alone if I need to, but that is definitely the one that I did not like that everyone else did. Number 4 is a book you read the fastest. This one I also don't own a copy of anymore, but I'm sad that I don't have it, so I will be rebuying it eventually in the future, and that is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I read this one the fastest I can remember because I read it on a like 4-hour plane ride. And so when I saw this question, that's where my mind went, was I read it in one sitting on a plane. And I've read a lot of other books like really, really fast. I don't know which one was like literally the fastest that I read compared to like the length of the book, like how many pages. Because another one for this could be The Enigma of Room 622 by Joelle Dicker, because that one is way longer. It's like 700 and something pages, and considering the length, I read it really, really fast. But for this question, I don't know, rock, paper, scissors, I read the fastest because I read it on a 4-hour plane ride in one sitting, and I really liked it. Number 5 is a book that deserves more hype. This one I do own. I have this one. I am going to kind of revert back to question number 3 and take a better Taylor Jenkins Reid book, in my opinion, that I think deserves more hype than Seven Husbands. And that is After I Do. This one, in my opinion, is so phenomenal because it's such a great storyline and it's so much better and more real and interesting to me compared to Seven Husbands. Now, do I have like facts on that? No, but this is an opinion-based channel. I just give you my opinion and I just review the books from a personal standpoint, so I don't really have like the facts to tell you why that's better, but it's just a personal preference. I believe that this one deserves more hype because it made me sob, which is another question to this. That's rude. That's really rude, Benji. Which is another question in this tag. So I could also answer this one for that, but I have another one for that. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead. This one just hit me so hard in the feels. I was astounded by like the emotions that it pulled out of me. I think because it is a familiar situation that I have gone through in my life. Basically, what it's about is this couple, their marriage reaches a breaking point and they decide to take a year off to kind of figure it out, find themselves again, a journey of self-discovery, finding true love within yourself before loving another person. It just has a special place in my heart because not that I have marital issues, but leading up to marriage, questioning love and questioning myself. Question number 6 is a book that is becoming a movie or TV show. Now, I try to stay up to date with the happenings of what's being adapted, but it's always so vague when you Google it. So I know that there's like a lot of talk about a lot of books becoming movies or TV shows. Some of them just take forever in production, some of them fall through, so it's hard for me personally to have the patience to read a whole article about it. Of my favorite books that I have seen will probably become some kind of adaptation that I'm really excited for is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I also really love this book because it had very relatable aspects for me personally. And I connected to this book, I connected to the main character, I love the writing. I'm excited to see this one become a movie because I think that it could be done really well. Now, it's scary to think that and then be disappointed. It definitely depends on the cast for this, and I do believe that that has been released, and I was looking into it. There's not a lot of like big actors or actresses set to be in this one, but the guy from Ginny and Georgia, I think, is going to be like main guy. But other than that, I didn't recognize anybody else. So that's a good sign. I don't want them to be like super big name people, but I am excited for the movie, I think it is, unless it's a TV show. I could be wrong. Nonetheless, I'm excited for it. Number 7 is a book you have reread the most. Now, I do not reread books. I don't generally do that because I just would rather read something new and fresh. So the only book that I have reread, I'm going to kind of tweak the question a little bit. The only book I have reread one other time, so I have read it a total of 2 times, and that is Acotar by Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Thorns and Roses. First time I read it was as a buddy read with Sarah from Sarah's Shelves. We buddy read it together for the first time, and that was fun. And then the second time I picked it up was for an Acotar read-along with Manda from Ginger Snapped Reads and Jess from Books Past Bedtime. They were hosting a read-along, so I decided to reread the first book with them all to then get to Akamath, which was then the first time I read that one. But that was 2 years ago now. or maybe last year. I don't remember. A year and a half ago? I don't know. But yes, Acotar is the only book that I have reread. But I have some like on my radar that I would probably want to reread, and that is Birthday Girl being one of them. I would love to reread this one. And probably some others, but I just have a fear of rereading because I don't want to not like it as much as the first time. I'd rather just have a completely new experience with another really awesome book. Question number 8. A book from a genre you don't typically read. I don't typically read fantasy, if you know me. Like high fantasy. The one I have here is not high fantasy, but it is fantasy. And I don't read it too often. I know that my favorite book is a fantasy, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but it was so good to me that it didn't feel like fantasy. I don't know. Anyways, my answer for this one is 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I think I just wasn't expecting to love this book as much as I did. I gave it 5 stars. I remember going into it hoping that it was just going to be as beautiful as the cover is, and it really was. I loved this story. I loved the characters. Very much an escape read, and I know a lot of people do pick up fantasy for the escape factor. And for me, like a lot of fantasy, it's hard to escape into because I don't understand where I am or what's happening. But this one was the perfect escape. So I really appreciated it for that. Normally when I want to escape or just like turn my brain off, I read a thriller or something. But I picked this up and it was just amazing. I loved it. I haven't read the sequel yet. I still desperately need to. So gonna get on that. But it was beautiful. I loved it. So definitely that one. Number 9, a book that deserves all the hype it gets. This book gets a lot of hype and it absolutely 1000% deserves it. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This book is so good and I know everyone recommends it like so hardcore because it really is phenomenal. Even if you're not a sci-fi reader, it doesn't feel sci-fi. It doesn't feel heavy on like the terms and the world and whatever. Like it's so good. It's perfect for any reader. And you wouldn't think that because it's so big and seems scary and daunting because it is a sci-fi, but it's amazing. Also, the audiobook gets recommended highly for this too, so I also would recommend the audio. It's a fantastic production overall. I need to give this one to my dad. I was going to recommend this book to my dad and have him just borrow this copy, but I haven't done that yet. I love this book. It's definitely deserving of all of its hype, and anyone and everyone can read it and should read it. Number 10, a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. For this one, I struggled to find an answer because I was like, what is it that I recommend as a general reader, as a general book reviewer, booktuber? I wanted to find something that, like some of these other ones I've already mentioned, are a good general fiction, even if that's not the genre that they are. I feel like they could be recommended generally to the public, to anybody, to anyone who wants to get into reading, doesn't know what kind of genres they like to read, or does read a certain genre, like is strictly like a romance reader, but wants to delve into something a little different. This is what I came up with. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. It is magical realism, but it doesn't read like it would be a struggle for anybody to read. Like it's very, what's the word? Digestible. Yeah, it's very digestible for the average person. So I would always recommend this if someone's just looking for any kind of book, doesn't know anything about books, wants to get into reading. This is what I would recommend. Like on the flip side, I am a thriller reader usually, but I actually don't feel like I have enough under my belt to like recommend that like safely to anybody. I would say like if someone was specifically asking me for a thriller recommendation and hadn't read any thrillers, I would point them to Riley Sager. But this I think is a safe bet just because it can reach any audience. And then number 11 is a book that has your favorite characters. Some of these now I'm realizing can overlap these questions, but I don't want to do that. I wanted to come up with another book to tell you that I love the characters for, and that is The 1000th Floor by Catherine McGee. So fun. It is a trilogy, and I've read the second book. I still have to read the third book, which hopefully I can get to soon because I do love these characters. And this is one of the few cases where it has a larger cast. I'm gonna beat this dog. I'm gonna beat him. It has a larger cast that doesn't feel overwhelming and it doesn't bother me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, there's too many characters, there's none that I even really care about. It's just a bunch of like fill-in side characters, whatever. But that's not the case for this one. Like every person has their very, very distinct personality and purpose in this story, and I found that they all meshed together so well, and it was so fun. And I love every single one of them individually as they are, for who they are. And just like this whole world in general is so fun. Like I'm actually so into this book and I need to be talking about it more. It's an older one for sure, and this was one of like the first books that I bought at Target when I wanted to pick up reading again, like back in 2019 or 18, and the main reason being the cover intrigues me. This is exactly the type of thing I was into when I was younger, like a teenager. I was obsessed with New York, obsessed with big city life, and the idea of this super, super tall building that has 1,000 floors, kind of running as its own society within the building, with like the class of people being based on what level they live on, like what floor they live on. It's Gossip Girl vibes. It is sci-fi, like just technology, use of technology in this one, which I like. I think that's like the perfect sci-fi blend for something like this. But anyway, love the characters. They're all so fun to follow, and I had a great time reading this book, and I'm going to pick up the third one. I promise. A book you wish you could live in. Similar to that one, or not similar at all, but like I feel like I could say this for that as well. I think it would be super fun to live in this world. I would prefer the 1,000th floor, or at least the 999th floor. Otherwise, would maybe not be the best, would not be the funnest. In my real life, I'm very middle class, so I probably would survive if I lived in that world and I was on like the 500th floor. That'd be pretty solid. But, oh, I forgot I pulled out the second book because I had read the second book. So I recommend the whole series. Is basically why I brought this second book out, so I could tell you that. Anyways, back to the next question is a book I wish I could live in. I do wish I could probably live in a bunch of these that I've already mentioned, but again, we're not overlapping. We're coming up with new answers for every single question, okay? So for this one, I chose Malibu Rising, another Taylor Jenkins read, because it's so fun, and I read this book in Malibu 2 years ago. It was very fun to do it that way. It was very immersive to take the book with me for my Malibu vacation and just read it while I was there, because I was like, may as well. Like, why would I not take that opportunity? I would like to live in this book because it's not only takes place in Malibu, but it takes place in Malibu in the 80s. No, I have not lived through the 80s. I don't know what the 80s are like, but the book does a great job at least describing to someone who was born in the late 90s what the 80s were like. Now I believe Taylor Jenkins Reid because she, I'm assuming, lived through the 80s. Like living in an old-timey beach town before Malibu was Malibu as it is today. Going there when it was just a lot more simpler, I feel, and cleaner. And just a whole different vibe. I think I would love to live in this book. It's still the real world. Definitely no like fantasy elements or anything like that. I would still want to live in the real world. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people would probably say they'd want to live in a fantasy world or something like that, but not me. I don't want to complicate my life like that. So I would like to stick to a place that I am familiar with, that I know from growing up in California and being around the beaches. I think I would love to just live in this book because it's also in the 80s. So that's like the main reason I would want to go back in time. And I do remember like reading this book and being like, wow, I wish I lived in Malibu in the 80s. Like that just sounds so nice and fun and like carefree, you know? So anyway, this is the book I'd love to live in. Question number 13 is a book that you thought you were going to hate, but ended up loving. I think I have two. The first one that I pulled out and was like, yes, definitely that one, was Credence by Penelope Douglas. I'm really sticking to some of the same authors here for this. So Credence, I didn't think I was gonna like really hate. I just didn't think it was gonna be my vibe because what I had heard about it before going into it kind of scared me, or I was bashed for, if you like this book, you're twisted. I remember like just reading Goodreads reviews and people being like, oh my gosh, if you like this book, something's wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh, great. I really hope I don't like this book. I would hate for people to perceive me like that, but screw that. Like, who cares? I loved this book. It was so fun. Now, it's so weird, and it is definitely dark and twisted and taboo, but I just love taboo. The more taboo, the more age gap, the more forbidden, the more forced proximity. I'm telling you, those are my top 3 in a romance. I love that shit. I love it. So that's what this is. It's about a girl with her estranged uncle and cousins. The uncle, the 2 cousins, and her, Tiernan. And oh, this is why I read books, man. This is because this will never happen to me. Maybe it will happen to other people. Can't say that for certain because there's a lot of people in this world. But for me, I will never get with my uncle and I'll never get with my 2 cousins. So let's just write a book about it instead, you know? Not that I'd want to. I'm not, okay, this is taking a turn. It's not what I meant. I'm just saying, like, for some reason, it's fun to read. And I have no shame in that. I love it. So I will say this one. But I will also say Bunny by Mona Awad. I didn't think I was going to love this because I didn't think I was going to understand what was going on. I didn't think I was going to... I don't know what I thought. And I still don't know what I think because after reading this, I didn't even know if I was still alive or not. I felt like maybe I had entered an alternate reality and I had no idea what I had just experienced. Like, it was so strange. But I loved it. I gave this 5 stars too. I gave Credence 4 stars. But honestly, I'm giving it 5 because the only reason I gave it 4 was because I was scared of all those people attacking me for loving it and giving it 5 stars. I don't care. My Goodreads says 4, but I, in my soul, am saying 5. Okay, sorry, I'm done yelling. This one, I gave 5 stars because it was so wild. I don't know, man. Like, how do you explain this book? You don't. Have you read it? Then you know what I'm talking about. This book is an anomaly. I didn't think I was going to like it because it's like this group of rich girls that I have nothing in common with, like I don't relate to this lifestyle, this type of girlhood, but it's horror. It's a horror novel. And that was what made me want to pick it up the most, was because I wanted to dabble into horror some more. And I do really admire Chloe Bunny, formerly known as Books with Chloe, but she has made this whole bunny thing her entire personality, which I love and live vicariously through. So she was hype. I love her. I watch her videos religiously, and at the time she read this book, I was absolutely obsessed with her, and I took all of her recommendations to heart. So when she made this her entire personality, I was like, I have to know. I just gotta know. I'm not gonna make it my personality because I just already know that this is not going to be encompassing of who I am, but that's fine. Like, I don't need it to. I wanted to just go in and experience it and just understand what was going on, you know? But I still didn't understand it, but I'm glad that I read it and I still loved it. I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It just is what it is. It's Bunny. Living in a bunny world. I didn't think I would hate it. Both of these I didn't think I would hate. I just was surprised that I loved them as much as I did. So yeah, there's that one. Number 14 is A Book That Made You Cry. As I previously mentioned, After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid made me cry, and then also One True Loves by TJR, similarly, it made me cry, and I read those around the same time. But the one I do want to say for this question is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. This one absolutely made me sob because it just was so emotional. Like, it follows the 2 best friends and like their entire lives together as they grow up from being little girls to then women, and like the things they go through, life hitting them in different ways, and how they cope with that together as best friends and as individuals. And it was just beautiful. I loved it so much, and it did make me sob. I did catch it on camera. It's in an older reading vlog that I have done on my channel. So if you want to watch me cry on camera, for both times actually, for this time and then also for after I do, I have the vlogs here on my channel, so I will link them for you so you can watch me cry if you'd like to. All of these books, if I've read them for a reading vlog, they will be linked down below so that you can binge watch my videos. I would love that. I cried, I sobbed, yes. Firefly Lane. I still have yet to watch the Netflix special, but I have gotten kicked off my parents' Netflix, so we're gonna figure that out if I can eventually watch it in the future. Okay, last question. Number 15. A book you wish you could read for the first time again. I don't own it, and I'm also sad that I don't have this book anymore. I don't know why I got rid of it. I really wish I still had it, so I'm gonna buy another one because I don't agree with past Sydney's decisions. But that book is Illuminae by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This is a throwback. This was the talk of BookTube before I was on it or really anywhere near it. I started to consume BookTube in 2016 when I went away to college, is when I first discovered BookTube. This is a little bit of a tangent story time, fun fact. The first person I watched on BookTube was Haley in Bookland, and I just loved her recommendation videos, and I remember seeing Illuminae come up quite often, and so then I started to dive a little more deep into BookTube and just like hear everyone's thoughts on all these books. I added so many to my TBR. I didn't know what TBR meant back then, and I was like Googling it. What does this mean? And now I use that term in my everyday life, which is just crazy. Time is crazy how that works. Anyway, Illuminae, I wish I could read this for the first time again because I remember being so sucked into this story. I need to read more like young adult sci-fis. I think that's like what I like. I've had a struggle with sci-fi recently, not really enjoying it, what I have been picking up. But I think it's because I've been reading the adult sci-fis, and I am a big fan of the young adult sci-fi. So this is that. Illuminae is a young adult sci-fi about like a ship. Honestly, it's been so long since I've read it, and I don't have the book to like read the synopsis to you, but like I'm sure you've heard of this book. I'm sure you know a little bit about it. Oh, I need to reread it. I wish I could read it for the first time again, but apparently if I were to read it now, it would be like the first time because I'm having trouble remembering much. I read it a long time ago, so there is that. And then I remember like reading the second book, wasn't as into it, wasn't a huge fan, and then I didn't get around to looking into picking up the third book. I think the reason that this was so fun and fascinating and quick to get through is because it's mixed media, so you're reading not just like words on a page for 500, 600 pages. It's very like interactive and different things on the pages and whatever. So it was fun. It was really fun. And I remember reading the end of it at one of my brother's sports practices. We were in like the gymnasium and I was on the benches in the bleachers or whatever. And I remember just my eyes were glued to the page and everyone could see that I was so into my book. Like all the parents around me or whatever, they're like, "Oh, is that a good book? You seem to really be enjoying it." And I'm like, "Yeah, shut up. Stop talking to me. I'm in a very intense part right now." I need another book like that. I need another book that just like has me in a chokehold while I'm reading it. And I'm like, I can't not know what's going to happen. Like I can't stop reading this book. I can't not continue right this very second. So Karen, please leave me alone. I loved it. I wish I could reread it. I wish I could read it for the first time again. But I'm going to. I'm going to get the book and I'm going to read it. Hopefully it's just as good though. That's why I'm scared to reread. I don't know if it's going to be as good as the first time I read it. But yeah, I love that book. I gave it 5 stars. Anyway, those are all the questions for this tag. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble a little bit, get a little intense on some of these, but this was fun. I like tag videos. They talk about like books that you've read in any sort of context, to just like have a chat about the books that get me going like this. Anyway, I gotta stop. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, consider yourself tagged. You can answer these questions if you'd like. I'd love to know your answers to some of them, even in the comments. So let me know. That's it for this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!